And so if you're showing up kind of late at night
Yeah.
and it's dark and you're just like, yeah, just the instructions for checking in are just walk into the backyard. It's like, this is night, and
I don't want the neighbors to think we're like burglars
Yeah.
or something.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this world schooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about world schooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in.
So for this week, we are answering the question, what are your tips for using Airbnb for full-time travel?
yeah, I think probably let's start with why we choose Airbnb, because
Yeah.
I think that's been a little bit of a hot topic in the last decade.
We've been using Airbnb since 2009.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, we were like early adopters of
Yeah.
Airbnb.
So there's several reasons we choose Airbnb. I think the one main reason that we choose Airbnb is for families. The hotel industry is just not set up to support families,
Mhm.
especially when you get outside of the United States and Canada. Hotels are often booked by occupancy. So usually you have to book multiple rooms, or you're paying really expensive rates. There's no privacy in hotel rooms.
Yeah.
We cook a lot when we travel. A lot of times hotels do not have any way to do that. So we really want an apartment type of setting. And so Airbnb gives us that ability. Now, there's always been like vacation rentals and that kind of
Yes.
stuff,
Yeah.
right?
I think the other thing is that when we travel, sometimes we like to like imagine what it feels like to live there.
Mhm.
And Airbnb, like especially like booking, a whole entire house to yourself for Airbnb or an entire apartment, that allows us to kind of feel like we're living there instead of just as a visitor.
Yeah. And I think also when it comes to budget wise, hotels, hostels, that kind of stuff, they're not really expecting you to stay longer than a week or two. So once you start trying to stay a month or longer, that gets really expensive. And then there's a gap between then trying to find local leases, because local leases usually are only for 3, 6, or 12 months.
Yeah.
And so then what's that gap if you only want to stay for a month or two? It's really hard to find that gap. So Airbnb fills that space nicely. But we also, like, what would you say for the reviews? We also use it because of reviews, right?
What do you mean?
So one reason I think we like Airbnbs is because we can vet where we're going. A little
Yeah.
bit, right?
Yeah. That's true. Because like if we're if we're trying to go through like a local lease, we know some families who have done like found places through like Facebook Marketplace or something like that,
Yeah.
but there's no way to really like vet whether the property that they're saying that they're offering is like actually good or not without like just visiting there or like walking through it or anything like that. And so Airbnb at least allows us, like we tend to only choose ones that have reviews so that we can read through them and be able to like see what other people think about the place.
And that's a value of ours as a family. It's something that's one of our kind of points of security or safety that we feel like we want a little bit of knowledge of what the place is going to be like. And even with Airbnb, like sometimes that's unpredictable, but that's actually the perfect transition for the rest of this episode, because what are some of the tips that we use for using Airbnb to ensure that we get kind of something that we're hopefully expecting?
Yeah. So we do read the reviews for that, like for, to make sure that it's like that people think, to see like what people think about it. Another thing about reviews though is Like we'll never book an Airbnb that doesn't have any reviews. And then we also look at like the types of reviews that are being left.
Yes.
You know, like if it's just I think you can tell if it's a host that's like asking their friends to like write reviews and give me all 5-star reviews. We hardly ever stay at like a place that's all 5 stars because that kind of raises red flags for
Yeah.
us too. Like, wait a minute, realistically, I guess if it's like all 5 stars with only 3 reviews and they're a new host, I guess. But if it's like, you know, they've been around and it's like 20 reviews and it's all 5 stars, you're like,
yeah,
is it really exceptionally perfect, or there's got to be something that is.
Or if like the reviews are just 100% glowing, like this is amazing, perfect host, all that, or they're really short. I mean, there's lots of little red flags.
Yeah.
So we look for things that feel more authentic, something that has a little bit of criticism or suggestions or advice or things like that. Sometimes you can't always get that in a review.
Yeah.
In reviews, but that's something we look for.
Yeah.
On top of reviews, I think we also look for like just how well the listing is written, the description and the location, how much details put into that. I think that shows a lot of care from the host standpoint.
Yeah.
We haven't done Airbnb ourselves, hosted Airbnb in ourselves, for example, but we've done other services similar that's in the gig economy where we've hosted things. And we take a lot of pride in making sure there's a lot of detail in the listing that we provide. So we also kind of look for that in the location detail. Like,
yeah,
are you telling me how many grocery stores are nearby or what the Wi-Fi speeds are or some of that stuff?
Yeah. Well, and reading the descriptions is also helpful for you as a guest because then you know what to expect or it like sets expectations, right? Like if the pictures look like, if you're expecting something and in the description it clearly says we don't provide XYZ thing, I mean, that's on you for not having read the description, you know? For us, like, we're always trying to see, because we work remotely, when we travel, we always want to make sure that there's at least like a desk or something. And so usually the description will say that there's a dedicated workspace or something. And then we'll look at the pictures and try and plan out like, oh, well, we could work in this space here, or like, oh, well, there's the table, or if we need to take, you know, a meeting in a room or something like that, like, oh, there's a room that can be closed.
Yeah.
So those types of things are important to us.
I think one other thing about the reviews is that we also check when the last review is posted. There are sometimes listings that will have reviews that haven't posted or there hasn't been a review in a year. Yeah. And so that sometimes can raise a red flag. Sometimes that's just because they had to take it off the market for a while.
Right.
And then they put it back on.
Yeah.
So
like, I mean, the pandemic, you know, that when that happened, lots of Airbnb hosts didn't have guests for a while. So obviously that makes sense. But, you know, if it was like, just look at it with a critical eye, I think.
Yeah. And I think but that's where I think the next point comes into play. If there hasn't been a review posted for a long time, or there is gaps in the description or something, what's the thing that we always do?
Well, we always send a message to the hosts. You know, Airbnb is different from hotels. And I think for people that are new to using Airbnb, you have to like come with it knowing like this is not a hotel. So like, yes, they have the instant book option, but I would always suggest contacting the host, like send a message to them, you know, read through the description, and like if there's any questions that come up, send it to them. We usually have a set of like questions like, what are parks nearby for our family? And it doesn't have to be anything like serious. And then we also will ask about like, you know, what's the internet like in the place, and can you send us a screenshot of the speed test? And why do you think it's important to like reach out to the host ahead of time?
I think for me, it helps gauge like who it is that you're talking to. I know just through a couple messages, it's really hard to do that. But for example, I think most of the times we're able to suss out, you know, one of the controversies Airbnb's had recently is that there's like they're company owned. So a company will have a bunch of Airbnbs that they rent out, and then it feels very like corporate-y and stuff. And a lot of times you can tell that in the messaging. If you're messaging them some of these questions and you get back a response that really doesn't answer, or it feels generic, or it feels canned in some ways,
Yeah.
that can be a red flag that this is like not a single host, or it maybe that doesn't bother you. One of the things about ethical and responsible travel that we like to talk about is that we do recognize there's a problem with Airbnbs. So one of the things we like to do is try to find Airbnbs that are locally owned, usually by a single owner. And so that's one way that we can kind of vet that out.
Yeah.
The other thing is also you mentioned the responsiveness. I think that's a critical one.
Yeah.
But also like just who is answering. So for example, in the past, we've gotten, the listing will be under someone's name, but then the messaging comes back through someone else. And then they're not listed as a co-host or something like that. So that also feels a little bit like, why am I kind of getting a bait and switch right now? And maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just the spouse that's not listed on the thing, or partner.
Yeah.
But those little things, you'd be amazed, just like little things like that can add up and actually turn into something significant, or they can be nothing. So it's just our way of continuing to try to like get a feel for it. I think the other thing that I like to reach out to hosts for is I like to ask them, like, what does the building look like from the outside? A lot of times Airbnbs only have photos from the inside.
Yeah, that's true.
And so if you're showing up kind of late at night, and it's dark, and you're just like, just the instructions for checking in are just walk into the backyard. It's like, this is nice.
I don't want the neighbors to think we're like burglars or something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What about like getting a cheaper rate or like discounts? Do you ever do that?
Yeah, so we've done this a little bit. This is, some families do this and some families don't. One reason to reach out to the host beforehand too is to ask if you can get a discount. And so you kind of have to be careful with this, because sometimes hosts will get offended that you're asking for a discount. We've never really had a host get offended. We just had hosts sometimes tell us, no, these are the rates and I can't budge on that. We don't really ask for rates all the time. I think it depends on if we are planning on staying a long time, like a month or longer.
Or longer, yeah.
Yeah, we'll ask for a rate discount. Sometimes, like if they don't list a month discount rate, a lot of times the Airbnb host will have a month discount.
Yeah.
But if they don't list a month discount, that's when I'll usually ask, do you have a discounted rate for a month? Because the other dangerous part for month stays through Airbnb is that it's not refundable. So as soon as you book it, I think you get like 48 hours to cancel, but after that, it's totally not refundable, whereas short stays are refundable in a lot of cases. So before I give that money, I want to ask, is there any monthly discount? And if it's off season and stuff like that, sometimes they'll give you a better rate.
Yeah. And actually that's important to like really vet the stay that you're going to book, because if you are staying for a longer time, that's a big chunk of your money. And it's happened to us where we booked a month-long stay at an Airbnb and it just didn't work out. And because it was already like a month-long, it was like a monthly stay with no refunds. Like we just had to eat that, that money.
And we've had people tell us, well, sometimes you can fight or you can file a grievance against Airbnb, and they might work with you to try to refund that money or something. But sometimes it's not worth the hassle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what about during your stay? What are some things that families can keep in mind? Or what are some things that, you would suggest to keep in mind for?
I think the thing that comes to mind for me is that it's someone's home. So just take care of it. That's always been our philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't, like you said, it's not a hotel. So we always plan on, well, we're going to have to take out trash ourselves. We're going to have to sweep ourselves, especially if we're staying a month or longer. Treat it like your normal house.
Yeah.
We'll have to buy trash bags a lot of times. We'll have to, those are the kind of things. Usually they have cleaning supplies, so we don't have to worry too much about that. But what else?
Well, I think something that we forget as Airbnb users is that guests get reviews too.
Yeah.
And so, you want to be respectful of the places that you're staying at, so that I think that I don't think that like hosts can necessarily like, what do you call it? Like reject you for having a bad, they can't like profile you or whatever. Or they won't be able to see your profile before they like confirm the booking. But I think it's just, a courtesy, and you want to have a nice reviews of your stay as well.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on having good reviews.
Yeah.
That's something that we care a lot about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I write a lot about staying at Airbnbs. Like I mentioned, we've used Airbnb since 2009, and wasn't it called something else before?
No,
it's always been
they just
Airbnb.
changed our logo.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we've used it since 2009, and I've seen like the development of the company into like what it is today, and we'll still use it for travels. And so if you're curious to read more about like some of the topics or tips that I provide, there are several articles on my website for using Airbnb with your family.
Yeah, and we'll do another episode that talks about alternatives to Airbnb, but we'll keep that for another episode.
Yeah.
Anything else? Cool.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worldschooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into worldschooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter, or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any worldschooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye!